All right, everybody, we'd love to welcome you to our webinar today, Disability and Employment. We have a great panel set up for you with Hire Heroes USA and Mission43, so we're excited to have you here. Basically, we're going to talk today about Hire Heroes and Mission43 as well. It's the mission of Hire Heroes really to empower U.S. military veterans, spouses, and military members to succeed in the civilian workforce. Hire Heroes USA is the premium nonprofit organization providing employment services to transitioning service members, veterans, and spouses all across the United States and around the world. And we are the leading voice in veteran service organizations, really targeting issues of underemployment, targeting issues of unemployment, and definitely targeting issues of military spouses. I would love to introduce our panel here, but to start off first, we're going to have Dan Nelson, and he's actually going to talk about Mission43.
Hey guys, thanks for being here and thanks for including us in this really incredible webinar. So I'm a program coordinator for the J.A. and Catherine Albertson's Family Foundation, and specifically I work with Mission43, which is the foundation's veterans initiative specific to Idaho. Mission43 in a nutshell is targeted to help Idaho transitioning veterans from active duty or whatever mode of service they were in to civilian life. So to offer veterans and military spouses both opportunities in education, employment, and engagement.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. If you could just also tell us about your military career just a little bit, and then we'll go on to the rest of the panel.
Sure. I was an enlisted guy first, then I got out, went to college, became an infantry officer in the Army, served in 2505 in the 82nd Airborne Division. And then in 2011, I switched over to the Special Forces Regiment. And unfortunately, I was blown up in 2017 in Afghanistan and ended up being medically retired in 2019.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to go on to our next member. First, it's my team. I love my team here in Idaho. We are definitely part of Mission43. We love it here. I'm Micah Taylor. I'm actually the Idaho area manager. I'm in the Air National Guard. I actually retire in March on my 40th birthday. I'm super excited about that. And I'm also a military spouse. My husband is an ammo chief over at Mountain Home. And yeah, we love it here. We love helping veterans and just doing what we do. We have Zach Tibbetts. He's actually a former Marine. He is a transition specialist, and he's actually up in northern Idaho. He's our representation up there. We have Nicole Wagner. She's an Army veteran and a military spouse. And we have Alden Valdez. She's currently in the Air National Guard, and they're all transition specialists here to help. We've got a great team, so if you have any questions with employment or you need any help, they are the people to reach out to. All right, Stephanie, we're going to start with you. Please tell us about yourself.
All right, can everybody hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So my name is Stephanie. I've been here in Idaho for about 2 years now. I've been in the HR field for going on 4 years. I started with a payroll and benefits company, and I've been in an HR coordinator role for a little over 2 years now. I'm currently with ABM. I just reached my 1-year anniversary here, so yeah, thank you. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Thank you for having me.
That's awesome. Oh, we're super excited to have you. Absolutely. Anybody who has jobs and they're here to help, we love you. Let's see, Lori, go ahead and introduce yourself. Lori, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
Micah, you're on mute.
Oh, Lori, I'm so sorry. We're having a hard time hearing you. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. Is this
oh, there we go.
Okay,
yes,
good.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Sorry about that. You gotta love technology, right? Especially in the world where we are today. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lori Sepulveda. I am a military spouse, as well as My father served in the military as well. So veterans are very near and dear to me. I've been in the HR world, let's see, for the last 13 years. And I've worked in Louisiana with transitioning veterans and recruiting veterans, as well as North and South Carolina, and recently moved to Idaho. So I have kind of moved all over, and definitely enjoy working with veterans and helping them to find spaces in our, to fit our employment needs. And it's really nice to see that. And it's worked well for us in the past. So I look forward to hearing questions and having a discussion with you here today.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. And that's funny because we lived in Shaw. We were out there for a while in South Carolina. So I know that side pretty well now. Never thought a Montana girl would know that, but that's awesome. Let's see, Chase, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. My name is Chase Liston. I'm an HR business systems analyst at Boise Cascade. I am here in Boise, Idaho. Been here now for about 2 years. Originally started with a company called Impact Group doing human resources information systems, analyzing and building out different protocols and processes throughout that. So I know a lot about the ATSs and kind of like filtering and how that information pertains to disabled veterans. I'm a disabled veteran myself. Went through a lot of that transition process and understand what y'all are going through and kind of the stressors that are involved with applying to a job and disclosing some of your veteran information as well as disability information if you have that. So love to answer any questions and help y'all out. Glad to be on the call.
Thank you so much. It's awesome. And last but not least, we have Tyler here. Tyler, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Tyler Christensen. I work with DISIS. So we're very focused manufacturing, IT, human resources. We get a lot of those requests, and the relationship kind of came accidentally just from market demand for these types of candidates. But we've been in this space now for a couple of years, actively recruiting both in Boise and nationwide. So sort of the front line in all things staffing and recruiting for everything from secret clearance needs all the way up to complicated finance analyst roles. So the military veteran community has been a keystone of that success. So very happy to be here today.
Michael, you're on mute.
So I see it says unmute and mute, and I am mixing them up. I need more energy drinks today. Classic veteran with energy drinks. So I'm going to stop sharing, and hopefully everybody can see me here. This is great. So I'm going to start off with telling stories from starting with Dan and then Chase, kind of your employment journey, what you experience as a service-oriented disabled veteran. And I do want to preface that we are not a mental health organization. We're also not a treatment facility. We're really here to talk about issues from that veterans face with disability, and maybe to combat a lot of those biases that we're noticing and questions from our veterans. We want to hear from the HR managers, from the recruiters, from you guys of what you need from us, and really to kind of break down those walls and those barriers. I know that this is a touchy subject, I get it, but I think it's good to ask hard questions to recognize that, HR people are not that scary, I promise. We love them. And also recruiting, we love recruiting as well. We work so well with you guys. And to have veterans on this panel who do have service disabilities, it's great to start this discussion. So Dan, I'd love to start with you. If you could just tell us, if you're able to, more about your service disability, what you need, and then how you wound up getting employed with the Albertson Foundation.
Yeah. Well, first off, I am definitely not an HR expert or even an amateur in that field. So I'm glad there's other people on the call that are. I'm just a dude that experienced some weirdness in the military, ended up being medically retired for it, and then kind of thrown unwillingly into the transition pool. I wasn't planning a career change. So whoever's on the call that's actually getting out soon or recently got out, you're like way ahead of where I was at. Mine was kind of a forced deal, and I really loved my job and I didn't want to move on, I guess. That being said, when I was medically retired, basically I was in an explosion that messed up the whole right side of my body. So, and most significantly my brain. So it's been kind of a long road there. There were some things that were really noticeable for the first, 2.5 years, like the way I walk, the way I talk, certain tics that I now have, whatever, the shape of my body. So, I mean, I was aware of that stuff. I think for me, just kind of calling it out, like I struggled for a long time with the stutter after my brain injury, and just acknowledging that with the people I was talking to that were at that point, potential employers or somebody that could help me in the job seeking process, like the Mission43 employment crew from Hire Heroes. Just saying like, hey, this is, you probably can tell that I have a stutter. You probably can tell that I have some weird tics. That's because I had a brain injury, but I wouldn't always say that, but if it was obvious, then I'd call it out. No one asked me to do so, and I was really lucky extremely lucky in getting the job that I have, and how, I don't know, willing they were to work with me. But that being said, I feel the onus was on me. So I just took the personal responsibility to be upfront with specifically like what I thought might be limiting factors in order so they can make a good decision. I had a service dog. I still have a service dog. He's not here right now because I choose not to take him to work anymore. But I did for the first probably 4 to 6 months that I worked here. And I don't know, I wish I could show you a picture. He's a beautiful dog. And it's not his fault he's so beautiful, but it was distracting because people automatically like look at the dog, right? I mean, any dog, people like unless you're a cat person or something weird like that. But yeah, people like dogs, right? So just me, even though he was like not like he wasn't a support dog or anything, there's nothing wrong with him, but he was a highly trained service dog and he was really good at what he did. But just the nature of me, I'm kind of a bigger guy and louder guy myself. And then I had a bigger dog with me. Like we attracted attention and I did not care for that attention, even though everybody in my workplace was cool with it. That, there's other things about that too. Like in the course of my job, I have to go to restaurants, or whatever. And the different events that we have, it would be nice sometimes to have Aldo, he's my dog. But I make a personal choice depending on the situation, depending on the day, and depending on, the environment that I know I'm going to, whether I think it's going to provide value or be an unfortunate distraction. And I'm not saying, hey, don't take your service dog or service animal or whatever you have to work with you at all. I'm just saying that there's room to answer questions and be upfront about it and make your own personal choices. I don't think you should feel boxed in either way. For me, I was medically retired from the military. I'm 100% disabled according to the VA. I never messed around with the federal disability, so that's something I'm not familiar with at all. But to be honest, I don't think my employer here even knows like what my rating of disability is, because this is just me personally. But I guess I don't identify as 100% disabled. You know what I mean? Like I still do stuff. It kind of makes me shudder when, in the course of my job, I'm really lucky to work with all these veterans and military spouses. And if the first thing someone says to me is, "Hi, I'm 100% disabled veteran," I'm like, "Man, hi, I'm Dan." You know what I mean? Like that's who I am. I'm not my rating. But that's just me personally, and not speaking for anybody else or any organization or anything. I just think that for my own transition, that helped me in maintaining a sense of self or identity, versus being, kind of put in that box like, hey man, because I had it. I think anyone that's been involved in the military medical system or DoD system or VA system, even not like talking crap about them, but healthcare providers, they're trained to tell you, not to do stuff that can potentially cause you discomfort, right? And some of those things are really important to me still, like exercise. Like, yes, it's not the same as it was, and yes, it does cause discomfort. to some of the injuries that I know are just going to be with me for the rest of my life. But the value in that is still like extremely high. So I still do it. And I guess the point of that is I've been told at certain periods throughout my recovery process, like, hey, you need to kind of accept that you're not going to do X, Y, or Z. Or, hey, you need to consider whatever, federal disability or something like that, because you're not going to be able to work for this time period during whatever surgery or whatever treatment protocol I was in at that time. And for me, it was really important to have a strong crew around me. It was important to have groups that were really authentic and caring for me. Mission43 was one of those that helped me before I was ever employed by them. And the biggest thing I guess I could offer would just be upfront. To me, being upfront, I should say, with potential employers, including my current employer, really saved me a lot of heartache. Even little things like, hey, I have a reoccurring weekly appointment at the VA that I really don't want to stop going to. What day can I schedule that? What time frame that's not going to interfere with my work? You know what I mean? And I didn't know when I first came on, like, hey, Tuesday mornings, every single Tuesday morning without fail is our big team meeting. So if I had scheduled a VA appointment, then I could have, right? Like I could have been like, well, it's my VA appointment, I'm going to do it. But that would have caused me problems, you know what I mean? Like here in the workplace, because I would be out of the loop in these really critical meetings. So I don't know. I hope that answers some questions, or at least maybe start some questions in your mind for the panel here. And yeah, I'm open for it.
I love those questions. Not the questions, but just the information that you've given. I think being transparent is so important. Every veteran's journey is different. We can't put veterans in a box, you know. We can't put disabilities in a box. There's so many different related positions, whether physical, mental, emotional. You know, it's just, there's so much there. So I think being honest in your journey and your transition and choices is really important. So Chase, I'm going to go with you. I would love to talk about your journey, kind of where it all ended and where you wound up and what you found happened during your employment journey.
Definitely. Yeah. So, you know, Dan, thanks so much for sharing that. It was inspirational to hear that you were able to come out, you know, full bore and just tell your employers that, hey, I have this disability. It's not something that I'm going to omit. It's not something that I'm afraid to talk about. It's something that I'm going to bring to light, and I'm not going to ignore it. I took a different path than Dan. I was more so on the reserve side, even at working in the ATSs, which is the applicant tracking system, which is basically where we filter all the resumes and applications through. I know that there's certain credits that employers are eligible for, but you know, you get the idea that there's a perception of you when you come in, especially with an organization that's maybe not as focused around veteran support. Maybe that's not something that they're upfront about. You feel the need to hide that information. You feel the need to not disclose that initially. And to me, that was something that I felt that I could kind of keep in my back pocket and not, you know, bring out unless necessary. And even when asked, they give you the option to not disclose. And that's the option I always selected, is that I did not wish to share. But having said that, and knowing now that there's credits, there's programs that these larger employers participate in, and smaller ones to an extent, that allow them to actually get money back from the government based off of how many disabled veterans or just disabled individuals they hire per year. So as a company and an organization, to them, it's beneficial. It's something that they can actually get money back on. It's better when you're looking at a holistic view, as the organization is trying to get, you know, that change management or allowing for people with different disabilities entering. It's better for them. So it's better for you to disclose that initially, and holding that and reserving that. It's, you know, like Dan said, it's kind of relief when you disclose it. It's giving people the opportunity to say, hey, for me, it's a trigger switch. You know, I struggle with PTSD, and I have some times where I tend to go a little bit off the rails for no reason. But, you know, if you disclose that up front, it makes your life a little bit easier. People can understand, and they can see as to why this guy may have a little bit of a trigger temper. And hiding it does no justice to you. It doesn't help the organization. It's not going to interfere with you getting the job. that being said, if you have, just like Dan pointed out, if you're going to try to work in, medical industry, if you want to be a doctor, but you want to have a service dog, there might be some, conflicting interests. The role has to match up with your disability, basically, and you have to think about that going in, just like an employer would think about, is this applicant eligible? If you need a bachelor's degree for entry and you only have an associate's, the two don't add up. So you need to be able to meet their specifications just like they need to be able to meet yours. So I think as an applicant, and as you're looking through designing that career path, before you even build out a resume, before you even start, thinking about what career field you want to enter into, giving yourself that preface of what do I need to do first, and how do I need to tailor my resume to best suit me, and then where do I need to edge my career path towards? That was always my biggest challenge, was where do I want to focus in on, and where do I want to hone in on? I knew that probably working on a firing range again wouldn't be the best job for me. So let's tighten the reins a little bit and focus my attention towards careers that are more applicable to myself. Jobs that are behind a desk and don't involve a lot of high pressure or high stress. Of course, the more you get into a position, you start to feel every job has stress and pressure. So if you're going to be working, you just got to get used to that. But negating that, you really want to make sure that you share that information with your employer initially, and it's going to save you headache and heartache in the long run. And it's not going to in any way deter employers from hiring you, unless that specification does not meet the exact requirements of that position. Again, if it's outside of that, they can only flex so much before finally they break. So they're going to, of course, negate, your application if it doesn't meet their qualifications. But that being said, I wish if I could have gone back in time, I would have been more like Dan. I would have been, be like Dan. Hey, that's the quote of the day. Just say it, right? Why not? It's not going to hurt you. It doesn't make you look bad. It doesn't make employers think, oh, this guy's going to freak out one day and, go post all in the whole office. They do not, they understand that everyone has their own disability, whether or not they like to admit it. We all struggle with certain things. So every person is eventually going to be faced with challenge and adversity. But by you disclosing that, you're actually helping yourself. And you were given that disability and that rating. I think of that as a benefit. And that's how the government thinks of it. And that's how companies think of it. That's a benefit to you. And it's actually a benefit to them too. So absolutely disclose it. Don't feel shy about doing it. And it's also your right to not disclose it. If you feel like it is going to hinder my chances of getting this position, you have that opportunity and that option. But I would look at an opportunity of more of disclosing it and giving that information up front to your employer. So if I could give you guys one tip for today and one piece of feedback, it'll help you, it won't hurt you. So tell them, let them know, like Dan said, explain, call it. Don't be afraid, don't be shy, just be open and honest.
Oh man, that is awesome. What a great piece of advice. Thank you so much. So on that responsibility that lies upon the veteran and upon the employer as well, Lori, I would just like for you to elaborate more, if you could, on what veterans really should have and their responsibility for applying for jobs. What would you hope comes through applications?
So one of the things that I always encourage veterans to do is, in working with different TAPS departments for military installations, I had a opportunity to, just provide some coaching, whether veterans were going to be applying to our company or other companies. And a lot of times veterans would come up to me and say, well, I don't have X, Y, or Z. And so I would stop them and say, tell me what you do have, because there are a lot of competencies and a lot of training and a lot of appreciation that veterans have that translate into not only our business, but other businesses. There's a strong dedication to safety and respect for following those safety protocols and keeping people around you safe. That's huge for us in our organization. The leadership skills and abilities, all that training that you go through in the military, we are looking for future leaders in our organization. All of that translates. Now, obviously, there are some jobs in the military that we don't have necessarily in my business, but I try to encourage veterans to think about, what are those skills and abilities that will translate to that opportunity that you're looking for. And so you want to accentuate those things, whether that's, in your resume if you create that cover letter, you know, listing that military experience and kind of letting us know, you know, that helps me to understand, okay, you know, this is a great candidate because, you know, those are things that we can't necessarily teach if somebody doesn't have in our organization. We can't go back and gain all those skill sets. And it just translates so well in our industry that I get excited when we have veterans who apply to positions within our company, because we have the opportunity to learn from them and they have the opportunity to impart wisdom, coaching to help us develop, you know, people along the way, because that's part of what you do. The military is excellent with training. And so if you just think about some of those things, I think that if I can speak with a candidate who articulates those things well and helps me to understand how their skill set fits into what I'm looking for in terms of those competencies, you know, so whether that's, you know, safety, whether it's initiative, whether it's, you know, leadership, coaching and development, you know, think about those higher level skill sets and how you can, you know, just display that to a potential employer.
Thank you so much. I think that really helps hearing the side of what you're looking for. You know, translation of skills, that's what we're great here at Hire Heroes. Sometimes it can be, you know, what does the employer need? How can we fit this veteran there? Or a military spouse, so it makes a big difference. Chase, we had a question come through the chat, so I'll have you answer this. It's for you. Chase, don't you think by disclosing it that you can hinder your chances of being hired? And you'll probably never know the reason. I know that with recruiters and with HR managers or hiring people, sometimes we don't hear back, and it can be completely frustrating, and you can kind of get in your own head of why you weren't hired for the position. So yeah, if you would love to take this question, that would be awesome.
Would, absolutely. Yeah. I had the exact same thought process. So I want to be open and honest with you. And I worked in HR prior to this. So I knew what the limitations were of the positions that I was applying for, yet I still did not disclose it. So I completely understand where you're coming from. But that being said, working for Boise Cascade, we've recently opened up, it's called a WOTC credit. It's the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. And what it is it's a series of questions, one of them being, are you a disabled veteran? That again, it provides for the organization, it provides them with a credit at the end of the year. So these organizations are actually getting money back from the federal government. Not only that, but if you guys have, you know, most large organizations have diversity and inclusion managers that oversee what type of employees that they're hiring. When you apply to jobs, and this isn't just specific for government jobs, but it does help with government jobs. There are, you know, I think it's like 5 or 10 points that you're afforded initially whenever you apply for a government job. It's similar to when you're applying to civilian jobs. There's opportunities for that company to get money back. Not only that, but to expand their diversity and inclusion range. So they're broadening their horizons. It looks better on the company. It shows that they're more apt to hiring veterans with disabilities. Again, completely, you know, you have to be upfront with your limitations, and it needs to be able to fit in with the job description and what the job is requiring of you. But outside of that, if it's a physical limitation that does not hinder you from doing the job, I would absolutely disclose it. And just like Dan said, you would be surprised on how most organizations respond to that. Not only are they excited to you know, help you and get you to where you need to be, but they're extremely accommodating. So don't feel hindered. It's not a hindrance. And in no time have I ever seen, whenever an applicant has gone through our system, the reason been disability for disqualification. For one, it's illegal, so they couldn't do it. But for two, it's not something that hiring managers are negating candidates for. It's not something that they're pushing candidates away from. I think if anything, it's actually benefiting you. And I would love to hear from, you know, the other HR representatives on that to provide some more insight on how you guys have seen it.
And Chase, just to follow up to provide some clarity, in the hiring process, legally, we can't get into discussion about disabilities or the WOTC program until we've extended an offer, that offer has been accepted, and then that person goes through onboarding. So you've already had the extension of the offer. we're aligned that we're good to go and we're moving forward. So, that prevents employers from potentially utilizing that information to disqualify a candidate. Now, if you go through the interview process and you choose to disclose it at that point in time, that should not be held against you in that process. But, if you have reservations about talking to an employer, you might want to wait until you go through that onboarding and you get to the forms that Chase was talking about to disclose that.
So my next question is for Tyler. Actually, Tyler, I know you recruit a lot in the IT field. When you are dealing with clients who have disability or any sort of barrier to employment, how do you guide them? Because I know you have a lot of positions to fill.
Right. And it's funny. I think like many others, I usually don't become aware that that's the case until they're already working. I don't have very many come forward early on in the process, nor do I, really feel like that has a bearing on these types of roles, right? The nice thing about IT is it's all certificate driven, right? It's degree driven. It's a lot of very black and white things that determine hiring. So usually it'll be later on that there's some kind of accommodation needed for something. And, we may have to help procure a desk or some other, thing to help facilitate the role. So that's usually where it comes up. I've never, in all my years of recruiting, seen it be an issue even once. Most employers are very happy to make that accommodation.
That is awesome to hear. I love this. I love this conversation so much. I think it's really good to see the other side. So Stephanie, have you had any interaction with people that had disabilities? They've come forward and you've helped them with certain jobs in recruiting, kind of what your experience has been?
So just like, how Tyler and Chase were saying, and actually what Lori just said, typically there's a form, it's called a CC305, and it's a form that asks you, do you have a disability? And that form isn't filled out until after you're done onboarding. So once somebody discloses that they have a disability, we actually have a process here at ABM that, we reach out to them as HR, and it's important that you disclose that kind of information because we want to be the best fit for you as an employee. So whatever accommodations that we can make to better suit your needs, that's what we care about. So it is really important to disclose, those kinds of things. Again, it's completely up to you, but sometimes it helps us as an employer to better equip you to meet, your needs. And yes, I have actually recently, we had somebody that had started, and he did disclose that he had a disability and it had something to do with his hearing. So we were able to place him in a different area within this warehouse that we were hiring for that would better suit his needs, where, make sure that there was a lot of visibility. That way he wouldn't have to depend so much on the hearing part of it. So, again, as an employer, we just want to make sure that we are the best fit for you as well.
That's so good to hear. I love hearing these stories of the positivity that comes out of this, to not be afraid, or at the very, once you're hired to disclose what you have, and the perspective on all of this. This is awesome. So the next question could be for anybody, but basically have you noticed bias against either veterans with disabilities from different hiring managers or panels, something to where you kind of question and you need to rethink your process on hiring this person? Have you been in defense of a person on a hiring panel? No one. No.
I have. I was pausing to see if anybody else wanted to answer the question. So I wouldn't say necessarily that it was a bias, but it was just a discussion, and the hiring managers that I was working with openly admitted that, they had ignorance in regards to, what are some of the things that we need to think about, when working with veterans or somebody who might need an accommodation of sorts. And so they were really looking to seek to understand. And obviously, you know, I filled them in on what I knew, but I encouraged them to connect with their new associate and to really find out, you know, who is this person, you know, what do they need, what works best for them, you know, to have just a one-on-one conversation to better understand, you know, the person that we're welcoming on board. And I've had to have that conversation probably a few times, not a lot, but I haven't ever seen necessarily a strong bias against hiring veterans, which is great. But it's more along the lines of people just seeking to want to understand, you know, what can we do from our end? How can we help this individual, you know, or maybe there's a disclosing of information from the veteran to a supervisor or manager, and they want to know, okay, how can I best help this person?
I mean, for me, if I get even like a whiff of bias or distaste of hiring veterans from a place, that's not a place I want to work for anyway, really. And even if it was another veteran and not me going for the job, but I think that's probably few and far between. I have seen assumptions, I guess, like I said, I'm definitely not an HR guy, but I know there's some questions that you guys aren't supposed to ask. And like, you know, like, do you want benefits or something like, do you have benefits through your military retirement? So that was for me, like, they know, like, I do have insurance because I'm fully retired from the military, right? So I think they may assume that I don't want the insurance package or whatever it's going to be, the benefit package, because of that. And then that way they have some more flexibility in the salary negotiation, right? So when I got that sense from other potential employers, I was just upfront and said, like, yeah, I am interested in covering my family with your insurance. You know what I mean? So then just kind of like nipped it in the bud. Like, you don't have to say like, oh yeah, my family's totally covered through TRICARE. You know, all the smart ones and experienced ones already know that anyway. But you can kind of lead them down the path that you want, right? That's kind of what the process is. I think, that being said, like, I left active duty for a while in my career, and I was a cop here in Idaho. So when I came back, it was kind of one of those things in a conversation with them where they were like, do you want your job back? Maybe, you know? And I'm like, no, like, I understand, like, I'm not capable of being a cop right now. So could I have gotten back on and done some job where I'm not, you know, actively patrolling or on the interdiction team or whatever? Probably I could, but that's not what I wanted to do. So I kind of made that, you know, some decisions in my own head of like, hey, logically right now, these are my limitations. I hope they're not stagnant. They're not going to remain the same limitations forever, and they have improved significantly. But that path is still ongoing, and it would have been detrimental, I think, for me, certainly to my mental health, to force myself into a job where both parties, both me and the employing party, knew that I wasn't there yet. I wasn't fully capable of doing that job.
I think I asked the question mainly because what we hear from our clients, you know, we ask them after interviews, hey, how did your interview go? What kind of questions did they ask? Just to have feedback in order to guide and to help. And we do a lot of mock interviews too here at Hire Heroes. And I've heard some concerning things, not a ton, but questions like, hey, are you okay working in an office? Like, so, and I don't know if that question would be asked if they weren't a veteran, or, you know, even for military spouses, there's certain questions like, oh, to your military spouse, like there's certain ways that we guide things for people. And so that's mainly why I'm asking the question, is just if you've heard anything or a great advocate or so forth. So I appreciate, especially just asking, you know, the veteran, getting to know your new employee and who they are inside and out. I think that's awesome. And we don't have any questions coming through the chat, but if you guys have questions, definitely ask. So we're ready. And so, we do have a question. All right, so this is for anybody at the panel. What do you think about the conjunction of age and disability? My conditions have gotten worse since my discharge, and I am limited to what jobs I'm able to do. When considering a career change, I cannot even seem to arrange an interview. So how would we help him?
I mean, I don't mind responding to that. I see quite a bit of that. I mean, we have to remember that, you know, the 9/11 enlistment generation is retiring right now. You know, these folks are actively coming into the workforce. So with that comes some really positive culture shifts and attitudes as folks with, you know, very decorated military service are entering organizations at a high level. So I'm seeing a lot of improvement there. But the trick really to that is certificates, right? Check all the black and white boxes. There's a lot of room for changes in career space by, you know, going after a particular HR certificate or going after a particular IT certificate. So that's what I see most people in that situation doing.
Awesome. Would anybody else like to add to that as well, if someone's doing a career shift or change?
I would say the best thing to do if you're thinking about changing your career is to first, again, I'm a big advocate of making a plan. So making sure that, you know, you going into this career field, if you don't have any idea of where you want to land, I would start doing some research around your limitations and ageism. I don't see it too much. And Tyler, you can probably back this in the IT field. I mean, there's IT guys that are 60 years old that whoop the 20-year-olds coming in. You know, it's not, ageism really isn't a factor. So if you're looking for career fields that are specific to, you know, you don't have to think about that. I would start to research, you know, good jobs for people over 50 or, you know, whatever field you're looking into, initiate a research. And if you have an idea as to where you already want to go, I would start looking at certifications to get you ahead because, you know, if you don't want to, or getting your foot in the door, sometimes that's, you know, the first step is just actually getting a job in that field. So start looking into certifications because they take a lot less time than a degree takes. And to be honest, and again, Tyler, you can probably back this, especially in the IT field, they are highly valued. And this is probably in every field, you know, in HR field too. We know that SHRMs, you know, PHRs, there's certifications that are looked at as almost more than a degree because you can show an expertise specifically in that focus. So I would be inclined to give you the advice as to create a plan, decide on what you want to do, and then tailor a resume around that. So try to build your resume based off of where you want to be, not where you are. So highlight the skills and attributes that would be needed for that job that you're looking at. And then each time you apply, kind of change it up a little bit, right? Look at the job description. I like to tell people it's basically like cheating on a test because if you put what's in the job description into your resume, it'll filter through the ATS and put you as a top candidate. So you can really kind of work your way into the system a little bit by taking that time, first of all, to get yourself to where you want to be in that field. And then second of all, creating a resume that allows you to get a foot in the door and impress that hiring manager.
Tailoring that resume is so important. It really is to the job. So I think specifically with Mark too, he was addressing like, what if you don't have any experience? Let's say you have these certifications, but you don't have any experience. Like, how would he approach that situation? Would he put all of his certifications first and then still put his job history and, you know, apply for entry-level jobs, or how does he get into that? Tyler, I'll put that to you.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say two things there. I mean, you should always have sort of a, I guess we would call it an ATS resume, right? Something that just is, you know, 9 pages long or whatever it is to make sure that we're hitting all the keywords. But you do want to be ready with a targeted resume that's a little bit closer to what you really want to do. And this is why the certificates can be really helpful too, because if, you know, you're studying, for example, for like a CompTIA certification and you absolutely hate it, boy, aren't you glad you didn't get too far down that path, right? I mean, I think there's an opportunity for you to really, you know, become a subject matter expert as you're doing that. If you have a direction that you've planned for and you really like, I think putting things like, you know, expected graduation dates, expected certificate dates, those are a great way to telegraph, you know, where you're going in your career. Most folks, especially if you're on your way to getting a certificate like that, I don't know too many recruiters that aren't very interested in talking with you now and trying to determine when you're going to have that and what that looks like for you. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's perfect. So I think it's hard when you're transitioning to a different career. You know, you've done something for so long, you know, you're a good leader, you know, you have good experience, but you want to do something else. And so where do you go? You know, and that's part of our job here at Hire Heroes, is to help and to connect also with, you know, recruiters and HR managers as well. So yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you both very much. Okay, so this will be for anyone, maybe more Dan, but please comment on veterans with PTSD whose interests basically you want to pursue the self-employment track. And I know Mission 43 is a great program with that. But any employment counselor may think the emotional damage may not be an appropriate track. In this case, I'm interested in pursuing a career in freight brokerage, but the counselor feels that this career may not be the best option. Again, my interest is here, is it the best option? So Dan, if you want to take that.
Yeah. Well, I guess not being a medical person at all, you know, but just speaking from someone that has, I mean, really continues to deal with PTSD and substance use disorder and all these things that, you know, I kind of spiraled downhill really quick after getting out of Walter Reed. I guess really it's, what do you think? Like, are you ready to take on that challenge? Because man, if I listened to every single doctor and every single counselor, I would not be here sitting in front of you today, honestly. But at the same time, I also made some really terrible mistakes in not listening to those medical professionals at times that set me back. So are you able to prioritize what needs to be prioritized? Like especially if you're taking the entrepreneur route and starting your own gig, right? That's a lot of pressure. And it's probably like, unless you have investors, you're bootstrapping it. So it's a lot of money. I mean, it's a big deal, right? And that inherently has a bunch of stress. But I would certainly take into consideration, especially if this counselor or whatever it is, a medical person that, like, are they truly a trusted agent? Do you feel they have a good read on you? How long has your relationship been established? All those things. And if the answer is yes, I trust this person, yes, they know what they're doing, and yes, they've helped me in the past, then maybe weigh that a whole lot more than someone that you've met one time and makes a diagnosis like, oh, you shouldn't be working. You know what I mean? But beyond that, you know, maybe listen to them in the sense that something as stressful as entrepreneurship or starting your own venture, which I also did to a smaller extent. I started a small nonprofit that remains small and still around, and it's my passion project, and it's not going away. That to me was therapeutic. I needed that, me personally, at that time when I started it. It's called the Aaron Butler Memorial Foundation. And basically he was my teammate that was killed in the same incident that I was injured. And it really helped me to start that organization and conduct those events. I can't say how it would affect you at all. But I think that, you know, some careful consideration of other people's perspectives is never a bad thing, especially trained professionals.
Thank you so much for that. I want to put out a good resource too, and it's the Veteran Readiness and Employment section of the VA. We actually had a great call this morning, my staff and I did, and they actually have an employment section for if you want to start your own business and you do have a VA disability rating. They're a great resource to go through. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of counseling. Again, I just am using them as a reference for you, but they do have a section in there that if you do want to start your own business, they would be a great resource, but they do evaluations and they have treatment and so forth. So yeah, Dan, I think that, you know, it's very individual. Employment's very individual, businesses are, but you know, hopefully, Steve, you'll be able to find the best resource, either go for it or listen to your counselor and then go for it. So we have other questions that are coming through. Let's see, Lori, I'm going to give this to you. How do you recommend veterans go about hunting for a job in a veteran saturated area, such as maybe logistics or HR or things like that? How do you stand out?
That's an excellent question. I have encouraged veterans in the past. I mean, you are your best advocate, right? So, you know, making sure that you're prepared to have that conversation with that potential hiring manager or that recruiter. I cannot emphasize this enough, but networking, LinkedIn is a great resource. And so if you know that there is a field that you're interested in, you can connect with some of those hiring managers by asking them questions on LinkedIn and interacting with them in a different way. That's one of the things that stands out to me. If I have somebody reach out to me personally and ask me questions about the company or opportunities, or, hey, Lori, I see that there's this position open. I'd be a great fit for your organization because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay, this person has taken the time to research. They understand what I'm looking for, and they've connected their abilities with the skill sets that I need. Perfect. So then I'm going to go look up, and I'm going to look at that person's resume, because they took time and effort to kind of figure out, okay, how do I connect the dots? Or, maybe it's a referral. I've got friends that are in the field, and they send over your resume and say, hey, Lori, I've got somebody who's looking for a position. We had SHRM groups that will outsource resumes for people in specific areas. And so, making those connections can help you stand out in those ways. So, networking would probably be the key there. But definitely understanding how you can advocate for yourself and being ready for that conversation, and being prepared.
We always stress networking here, especially on LinkedIn, but I always think of HR managers. They're like drug dealers. They have so many resumes, and everybody knows. I mean, y'all are laughing, but I know this is true, because they're like, oh, I know this person over here. Let me send them that resume or this. So it happens all the time. I'll send Tyler a resume, and he's like, nope, Mike, I know the right guy for this job. And it's awesome the way that everything is connected. We have people that, Booz Allen, and they go ahead and they are able to go hand that resume to somebody else. The connections, especially in Idaho, especially networking, people know each other. So I'm going to put a huge push for LinkedIn. Connect with the panelists here, people, definitely. But, this networking is definitely it. That's how that's how people know if there's jobs available. You're going to see it first there. And Stephanie, Chase, Tyler, Lori, I know I've seen all your stuff on LinkedIn as well. We've tried to push the jobs that you have available too. So yes, we'll put that out there. We do have another question. So Stephanie, I'm going to give this to you. How do you get your employer, more specifically your direct supervisor, to fulfill their requirements under the ADA and responsible accommodations?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yes. So how do you get your employer, more specifically your direct supervisor, to fulfill their requirements under the ADA and responsible accommodation? So if I needed a desk for some reason, like, how do I get my employer to fulfill that obligation to get me a desk?
Yeah, so honestly, just let your supervisor know immediately, as soon as possible. That's kind of what I advise. Also, you can seek out your HR representative, your local HR representative, get their contact information. Like I said, being on the HR side and, on the employer side, we want to take care of our employees and, want to make it a great fit and a great work environment for you. So don't feel ashamed or shy or hold back from letting them know. I would let your direct supervisor or HR know right away.
Thank you. So sorry, I'm coughing. I'm not crying, I promise. So thank you. Dan, do you have a question?
Sure. I guess for the HR experts, from my perspective, is there, I don't know, like a best practice for veterans coming out to talk about their service, like after the hiring, let's say, actually around, because I know everyone's service is different. Everyone did different career fields. But I know there's a natural curiosity among other employees, like coworkers, let alone supervisors, about like, hey, what did this man or woman actually do? And sometimes, like in my situation, it's more public. So like in a certain extent, so people around here know that they know some things about it, and it just piques their curiosity. Do you have any suggestions on how veterans can best like talk about their service without I don't know, crossing any lines or making people uncomfortable?
I know that when we talked we had a construction company here in town, they had no clue how many veterans they have. And you don't have to identify as a veteran, like it's a self-identified process. But what they did is they actually held this awesome barbecue on Veterans Day, and it was cold. And so I know Mission 43 was there, and the gentleman that was in charge of it, he was so surprised to see all of these great people come out and have a burger and a beer, classic veteran meal. And it was just wonderful. And these people were talking, and I don't think a lot of them had realized that connection. When veterans know veterans, there's just this, hey man, how you doing? Like you've crossed this border into an immediate friendship, probably throwing a lot of shade if you're from a different service. So, but it's all in good fun. We like to laugh, we like to joke, and and it was amazing to see the owners of the organization who were like, wow, I had no clue we had this many veterans here. And then all the other people connecting as well. And so what they decided to do is they like, you know what, we want to hire more. What can we do to get veterans over here? So they started to create a veteran transition program. Veterans have exactly what they need. They have the leadership qualities, they can definitely take care of teams. What they were missing was terminology. How can we transfer you into the construction field? Because you've got all the baseline stuff that we want. We just need you over here, but you need to come into the job already knowing this stuff. So how can we get this program this way? So that's just one personal thing that I saw firsthand. And I know Mission 43 and Hire Heroes was a part of that beginning conversation because I went there. And it was just absolutely amazing to see the backup and the people, and and just everyone was laughing and freezing, and it was great. So that's what I have seen. So I don't know if anybody else has seen that in businesses or organizations that they work with, but that was mine. So Chase, do you have a veteran program where you're at?
Yes, we do. Yeah. And it's slowly standing up. It's more so of like involvement in outside veteran community. But Lori and I are kind of the spearheaded type goal-oriented positions that are pushing towards getting us more veteran oriented. So right now we're trying to connect more with Mission 43 Hire Heroes and get our footprint more extended out into the community with Boise Cascade. So we absolutely do. We're always looking for veterans. That's something that we encourage veterans to apply. And, through whatever resource, like through you, we send out applications and try to get them to come to us basically, because it's pretty hard, as you guys know. Like I know one of the questions was regarding the veteran community and how saturated some of those areas are. I would say if you're in one of those saturated markets, maybe going to specific companies and tailoring your resume around that would be a good option. If you have, if you want to work for Microsoft, for example, I would start looking at every Microsoft job opening. Look for companies within your community too that you can easily go and talk to someone from. Like I said, getting a foot in the door, not a lot of people like. You just walking right up to them and like, hey, can you give me a job? That's probably not the best route. But if you connect through, like Micah was saying, one of those sponsored events, it makes that introduction a lot less needy. It makes you come off as not so much as like, hey, I need a job, but like, hey, tell me about your workplace. Tell me about, I think to me, if a veteran asks, what is it like working at Boise Cascade, and they involve me, it allows me the opportunity to like tell about what I love about my organization. I'm more apt to receive them or even give them a recommendation. So sometimes your approach and how you talk to people when you're job seeking can be the change that you need. Just a heads up on that.
That is awesome. I love hearing connections like this. This is perfect. And I hope there's more connections in organizations. I really do. I would encourage if you have an organization and you want to know who your veterans are, I encourage you to just get out and then hopefully celebrate who you have there. So Dan, I know you have another question.
Oh, I guess it's something I wanted to put out to the audience is just one of the mistakes, one of the many mistakes that I've made throughout the transition process. When I first left the military as an enlisted soldier coming out into the civilian workforce, I definitely had a sense of entitlement, I guess, where, you know, I remember like one particular interaction where they're like, "What'd you do?" And I was like, "I was an infantryman, you know, like I deployed X, Y, and Z." And the guy's like, "Cool, we make safes," you know what I mean? Like, he's like, "There's no one shooting here. Like, do you have any other skills?" I'm like, "Are you serious? Look at me. Like, I'm a war veteran." And of course I didn't say that, but in my mind, I kind of had that feeling. And I think it's because I was probably young and immature, but progressing, I see it even in people like guys my age now still, like, unfortunately, it's easy to kind of have that entitlement. Like, do you know what I just did? Like, how many millions of dollars of equipment I was responsible for, or how many people, or what I did overseas, or all this stuff. And the reality is, depending on the job, it's probably going to have no direct correlation to that at all. So the most important thing or advice I would give to veterans is, instead of leaning upon just your military, you know, resume, lean on like the traits and the characteristics that you developed and honed through your service, rather than like, this is how many deployments I had, you know what I mean? Because I don't know many employers that actually, I mean, I can't speak, but I don't think if I was hiring somebody for a specific job here in this building, like the number of deployments they had probably doesn't really matter to me.
I think too, really leaning on the civilian transition, like those skills make a big difference, especially in your resume, you know. But yes, it's a great point. We do have some questions coming through the chat. So Lori, I'm actually going to give this one to you. So ladies and gentlemen, I should do this in an accent actually. So Manuel, this is a good question. Please help me understand what it means if, well, actually, I don't know if we can answer this. What it means if your claims are in deferred status. So actually, Emmanuel, I'm going to have you elaborate just a little bit on that. If you're talking when it comes to the VA, I probably don't have an answer for you as well for a VA claim. We're mainly talking about just employment on the other side, but it doesn't mean we can't get you a resource. I did put one in the chat there as well for the vocational rehabilitation and employment. That is nationwide, so you'd be able to go there as well. I just don't have an answer for you. I think that's for the VA. The other one, okay, so Christy had a great question. The panelists today are from Idaho. Go Idaho, this is great. But are there similar resources like this in other areas of the country? And so actually, there are great resources out there. Hire Heroes is nationwide. So I want to put that out there. Like, it is definitely, if you're in any part of the country, if you're overseas, come here. We definitely want to help you. As far as Mission 43, Mission 43 is a program that is specific to Idaho. So I am sure there's other great state-driven programs. I just don't know of them at the moment. I'm so sorry. I'm here in Idaho, so I deal with Idaho, but Hire Heroes is nationwide. We have a ton of resources, great volunteers that we work with. If you're a panelist and you want to be one of our volunteers, I'm going to put that plug in for you to help guide people. But yes, so we do have great resources nationwide, but Mission 43 is just in Idaho. So other questions that we have coming through, let's see here. So within your organizations, have any of you talked to a veteran or so forth that have struggled with their disability in the organization? Like, have you noticed they're just either not progressing or the disability is hindering them or so forth? Do you have any stories about this and maybe what you advise them on? Nope, that's okay. That's fine. It's good. So really, we hear a lot from our clients from the employment end, but after the employment, we really just wish them the best. And they come back to us if they've ever need employment services again. But I don't really have too many stories of that either, to be quite honest. So, all right. Well, I am out of questions. So do you guys have any questions for our audience? Go ahead, Chase.
Yep. I would say if you guys haven't already, I know I've connected with a few veterans through Hire Heroes that have used the resume writing services, all the free services available. I think LinkedIn review, I'm naming off a couple, but I'm sure you can go further into it, Micah, as far as what you guys provide and opportunities, because it connects you with one of us. So not exactly one of us, but someone that's more likely going to be in a career field that is going to be like yours or equivalent to yours. And it gives you a little bit of insight. Not only that, but if you have a super impressive resume, it may just get forwarded on to a hiring manager. Not saying that that's going to happen, but I mean, if you're a great applicant, and a great candidate, and we have a position that matches yours, it doesn't hurt to try, is what I'm saying. So if you have a resume that's brand new and you just got out going through, the transition, I can say the resume I got, it pretty much got thrown in the garbage can when I went to like a professional resume writing service. So Hire Heroes does that really well. They do a really great resume for you, but there's another option to go with someone that maybe, they know how their organization looks at resumes or how you guys can beat the ATS. We've all kind of talked about that. So I would say utilize those services and connect with Hire Heroes to get that squared away. That way you can get in contact with someone.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. We definitely love helping people here. And honestly, folks, everybody here on this panel, I've sent resumes to, and they have been amazing in their response. And I know you guys are busy. I know. So I'm grateful for all of this. So LinkedIn development. So let's talk about LinkedIn for a second. So let's see here. Probably this question will be for both Stephanie and Lori. If someone reaches out to you on LinkedIn about a specific job, what do you hope to hear from them? Do you guide them? Do you want to hear why they're interested? How do you deal with LinkedIn responses?
For me, I do want to know why they're interested. I want to make sure that I want to understand what they're looking for. Another thing that I, wanted to point out from earlier is it speaks great volume too when you do your research on a company. That's a question that I always ask my candidates is what do they know about the company? And it's really impressive when I know how invested they are in the role. And so that's me.
Lori, what about you?
So from my perspective, I really want to know how I can assist you. Is there a specific location? Because we have over 40 locations just on one side of our business across the United States. So is there one specific location that you're interested in and maybe I can get you connected with that specific location? Or is it more along the lines of you're interested in a certain position that we posted, maybe that posting's not up anymore, or you want to know more about it. So really just, help me to understand what you need and what you're looking for. If you say, hey, Lori, I've applied for this job and I haven't heard anything. Great. Okay. I know what I can do to, get that hiring manager or whoever's facilitating the recruiting for that position to reach out to you and provide that update. So I think, just trying to understand maybe, where you're trying to go, what you're trying to do, or how I can help you. Those are the things that I'm looking for.
I think that's awesome to know. And I would preface this too with if a recruiter or HR manager doesn't get back to you immediately, it's okay. There's a lot of things going on. Everybody's shaking their heads like, yes. Coming from a recruiter and an HR standpoint, there's a lot of jobs to fill. There's a lot of things to do. And so there's many candidates that are there for many positions. So it may take a while to get through each candidate or resume. So just please be patient. Believe me, they're working here for you. They want to find the right fit. They're not against you, I promise. So my next question is actually for Tyler. So Tyler, if someone wants to get connected with you, because I know you have like several different jobs to fill in different areas, how would someone get a hold of you to talk about those positions?
Yeah, LinkedIn is pretty good. I do get blown up pretty good on LinkedIn, so I try to make my information as public as possible. But you know, the majority of my business comes to me, you know, through referrals. It's because you know, somebody knew a particular client I was working with or a role, and they reached out to me about that specifically. Some of the contacts that I have in LinkedIn have nothing to do with my jobs. You know, hey, I really want to connect with someone at Winco, and I see you've got a couple cybersecurity connections over there. You know, do you mind making an introduction, right? Those are great strategies. So LinkedIn for sure, but email and phone is fine too.
Awesome. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the chat right here. So I know that Mission 43 is going to have events. Our events are absolutely awesome. I know COVID has definitely taken things away for a while. We have a lot of physical events, challenges, and so forth, but we're hoping one day in the future to kind of ramp things up. Dan, I know we have a great skiing event up north. Did you want to talk about that as well?
Sure. Yeah, Mission 43, we're definitely ramping back up our in-person events, smaller in scale, obviously due to COVID restrictions, but that's kind of the magic of the organization, honestly, is it offers people like me in my transition an opportunity to get together with other veterans, and that networking is, I don't know, it's organic. It just happens during those types of things. It's a way for other veterans to, I don't know, have a certain sense of straight talk and identify like, hey, this person needs a job. This person would be good to introduce to my buddy over there. And I've seen that happen time and time again. And yeah, unfortunately, because Mission 43 is a state initiative, if you're not here, you know, I don't have a lot of good answers on other veterans organizations in other states necessarily, unless you want to ask me a state specific. But there's other ways to get involved in those types of things, whether it's a running club or off-roading club or something like that, something positive that you can get yourself off the couch and outside and connecting with other people, like-minded people, usually always ends in success, in my opinion.
And those events are wonderful. We've had employers come to the event and they've literally walked up to me and said, hey, here's a job I've come open. Here's what I need. Who do you have? And we have walked our veterans over to the person and said, hey, here you go. This is the guy. We know this is the guy. And that person actually wound up with a job interview within 2 weeks. It was phenomenal. So plus we love coming out and having fun and enjoying. We have a couple of the questions coming through. Does Hire Heroes have a type of mentorship pairing program? It looks like Joseph is going down an entrepreneurship route after retirement. Joseph, are you in the state of Idaho? I'll kind of wait for you to reply because I have two different answers for you as well. If you're looking within Hire Heroes, we have a wonderful volunteer department. And so we look for volunteers nationwide based on whether you're looking for specific mock interviews. I've used it. I thought about being a voiceover actor and I was like, hey, what do we have? I'd love to do audiobooks. And then my husband laughed at me. So, but the mentor was absolutely awesome. And then, yes, Joseph's in Colorado Springs. Okay. I would definitely recommend getting hold of your transition specialist and talking with them and asking, you know, hey, I'm looking for a mentor in this specific program. And then we put in the request for you. And then we have an amazing department that actually looks through all of our 1,500 volunteers and says, hey, this person is going to be wonderful for you. So we're lucky enough to have wonderful people that are ready to help veterans and spouses and really have great conversations in order to guide you where you need to go. So let's talk about if you're feeling discouraged, right? You've applied for a ton of different jobs. You're not really sure what to do. Chase, I'm going to put this out to you. What do you do if you are discouraged? How do you keep going on this job search if you've just had enough?
I think we've all been there before. It's going to happen. I would say So to start your journey, sometimes you have to restart. So I love the old theory of, pivot in place. So sometimes when you're stuck and you feel like you can't go anywhere and you've exhausted all your resources, maybe your approach was the wrong way. So like we've constantly gone back and said, look at the job description, right? So I found that a lot of applicants that I've helped through Hire Heroes, they use one resume, and they use this approach where they like shotgun blast it out to 12 different job sites, and they hit apply and they attach that same resume over and over and over. And I'm going to be honest with you, that does work sometimes. Like that approach, if you're the exact fit for that job, the one in the million, you will get a job and you will get your foot right in the door. So it is possible, but more than likely, the easiest way is instead of spending 2 hours applying to 30 jobs, spend 2 hours and apply to 2 jobs or 1 job. So focus in your time and your attention to the job that you want. And again, tailor your resume to that job and focus in your career search specific to that career type. So if you want to be a production manager, don't start searching for jobs that are ops manager, right? Stay within your left and right limits, like the old saying goes. Get yourself, tighten it up, get yourself into one space and then work in that space. And I would say second of all, if you start to feel discouraged and you feel like you're not getting anywhere, Dan gave great advice. Get involved in the community, because we want to help out the people that we know. Like when your friend comes to you and you see a job, hey man, can you throw me on there as a reference? You want to help out the people that that you're around all the time, your friends, your buddies. So with you reaching out to the community and especially within like Mission43 or just different groups, like don't hinder it or don't put yourself in a bubble of veteran organizations. Go outside of that, look at running groups, go to Facebook, go to, Craigslist, a little sketchy, but maybe meet in a public place for that one. But, check out what's in your community and build those networks, because the bigger your network, the better chance you have of landing the role that you want. I think that's the number one mistake I made when I first started searching. And then the last point I would make is, like Dan said, be humble. If you need to start from, just because you were a first sergeant, sergeant major, I don't really care what your title was in the military. If that equates to a level 1 operation manager at $40,000 a year, take the job and work your way up to where you are the senior operations manager in charge of the whole plant. Show them what you're capable of, but don't be afraid to take some steps back to move forward. That's all.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And there's a really great study out from LinkedIn that actually talks about veteran underemployment and how a lot of veterans are underemployed, but they promote super quickly. And we have discussions with Amazon about this. They're, they're a great veteran organization. They definitely want to hire veterans as well. But the underemployment's there, and then you just shoot right up. It's awesome. So I don't really have any other questions. Do you guys have any questions for our audience? Is there anything you want them to know about your organization? I know this conversation has went from, talking about veteran disability and kind of stereotypes and questions, but I feel like we've headed in a really good direction in order to give guidance for everyone. But if you have any questions for our audience or you want them to know about your organization, now is the time. No one, we're good. Okay, so I will actually call this good. If you guys need to connect, hopefully we have a recording of this. Kayla, who's in the background, thank you so much for all that you do. You are awesome. And to our audience, thank you for being here, asking amazing questions. And I hope you connect with everyone on LinkedIn. We are ready and here to help. If you haven't joined Hire Heroes USA, definitely go ahead and do this. And then also for Mission43, get involved, have fun. We love to laugh. We love good questions. And we are truly here to help you. So thank you, everyone.